Joshua Myers here, and welcome back to my Child's Play franchise review series, and I guess we'll see if the third time is the charm, with Child's Play 3 from 1991. Child's Play 3 stars Justin Whaling, Perry Reeves, Jeremy Silvers, Travis Fiennes, Dean Jacobson, Brad Dourif, and is directed by Jack Bender. No, not that Bender. The plot of Child's Play 3, it's been years since Chucky the doll, with the soul and the voice of a psychotic killer, voiced by Brad Dourif, was apparently destroyed in a fire at a doll factory. Now Chucky's manufacturer is remaking the same line of toys with the old, still haunting material. This resurrects Chucky, who goes after Andy, this time portrayed by Justin Whaling and not Alex Vincent. His former owner now attends military school. Chucky slashes his way through a string of grotesque murders as Andy tries to stop the homicidal doll and the spirit within. Before I get into the rest of this, I would say Child's Play 3 for a lot of people is probably put as the lower rated film in the series, and I guess you guys have to see how I feel towards this movie throughout this review, and also by the time I do my Child's Play franchise ranking. I must admit, basically what seems to turn people off with this film is the whole military school environment. And honestly, for me, in my personal opinion, for most of the film, I honestly thought it was kind of a fresh spin on this, actually. Now, not as fresh as some of the later films get, especially like the next one, but it is different in the sense, you know, that you got this military school environment and that you have all these different characters. Unlike in the previous two films where Chucky's going after a little boy and all that stuff, like a little kid. He's both in kind of house environments and that, and nobody believes him. This time, it's in a full-on school environment, and tons of people don't believe Andy until some of them end up seeing the doll. That is kind of a little bit annoyed at too. This time, Chucky's going up against an older Andy, so a teenager. So that's a bit different, because most of the time, Chucky goes after a kid. He still goes after a kid in this movie, because he got a new body, so he finds this kid, Tyler, who is this, who goes to this military school and that. Andy, because of Chucky trying to transfer his soul into Tyler this time, Andy sort of becomes, almost a protector role. You know, kind of like how his mother was in the first film. He's trying to protect Tyler from Chucky, and doing everything in his power to stop Chucky. I think out of any of the films in this series, this is probably the most active that the character of Andy Barclay is in terms of like proactively trying to stop Chucky. So, and I did like that. I did like that too. I like the concept and ideas for this story. I actually like where it goes for the most part. Another thing I actually did like is I like the new characters, I actually did. And now I get it, even though some of these characters are kind of like by the numbers military characters like in other films. I guess for me, I've never personally seen that much military movies and stuff like that. I've only seen like one, and that was in 1917. And a while ago, me and my brother started watching Saving Private Ryan. So I guess for me, compared to most people, this is a bit newer to me, considering I've never really watched too much military movies, like at all. But I do get that these are cliches of a military movie. I think it works pretty fine here. At least it's new in regards to Child's Play franchise. And I do like these characters. Like I mentioned, you got the character Whitehurst, or whatever his name is, portrayed by Dean Jacobson. He's kind of like, almost like kind of nerdy friend to Andy Barclay in this movie, like his roommate and everything like that, who gets picked on by the higher-ups in this movie. I also like the character De Silva, portrayed by Perry Reeves, who is kind of, I guess you could say, the romantic interest of Andy Barclay in this movie, but it's not really like, oh, they fell in love or anything like that, but there is a sense of like kind of flirtation between the two of them that I always kind of wondered how come they never brought back De Silva in any of the later films? Because that could have been interesting, I think. I mean, who knows? Maybe they'll probably bring her back in the upcoming Child's Play TV show, which is just called Chucky. I really doubt it, though. But who knows? I just like their connection a lot in this movie. And also, the actors are pretty good for what they need to in this movie. And speaking of actors, let's talk about Justin Whaley. I think that's how you pronounce his name. He ended up replacing Alex Vincent as Andy Barclay. And the reason for that is because the fact this came out a year after Child's Play 2. And at this point, Alex Vincent is still a kid. He's still, he's basically a year older than he was in Child's Play 2. I guess they wanted to do something different with this one, where it takes place years later, supposedly. And Andy Barclay's now a teenager, so they, of course, needed to recast Alex Vincent with someone else. And honestly, Justin Whaley actually doesn't do that bad of a job here, actually. In fact, I actually do like him in this role. In fact, there's some aspects to him that I actually, especially when you see what they do with Andy Barclay in the later films, like Curse and Cult of Chucky especially, I think he does better than Alex Vincent a little bit. And of course, let's talk about the one thing that most people come to see these movies for, and that's Brad Dourif as Chucky the Killer Doll. And he's still great in this movie. I think, honestly, in terms of, I think this is probably at this point where they fully realized Chucky. They kind of did that in Child's Play 2 a bit. I think they took full extent of that. But I think this one, they pushed it even a bit more in terms of, But yeah, there's a lot, honestly, a lot of the great one-liners, I think, also come from both Child's Play 2 and Child's Play 3 for example, don't with the Chuck! That line is pretty good. There's quite a few iconic one-liners from Chucky in this movie, which that's gotta be saying something. Also, I think they do a bit better job of pacing in this movie than they did with Child's Play 2, actually, which was one of my issues with Child's Play 2. Because one of my issues with Child's Play 2 is I felt like they could have made the film longer, kind of added a bit more in terms of pacing, in terms of trying to develop, kind of relationships between characters and that. They do actually better job here than they did in Child's Play 2 with that. And knowing that too, this also has a really fun third act climax. I'm kind of torn between which one's my favorite, either the one from Child's Play 2 with the toy store, with the toy factory, or this one with Child's Play 3 and the amusement park setting. Because in my personal opinion, I think the amusement park setting and what they were able to do with this in Child's Play 3 is honestly more visually pleasing and more visually impressive than that of Child's Play 2 with the toy factory. I think I'm going to have to say that the third act climax of Child's Play 3 is better than the third act climax of Child's Play 2. I guess I'm just going to have to say that because it's visually more impressive than the climax of Child's Play 2, and also I think it's even paced better too. There's more tension at stake, I think, even. The music. The reason being is I think it doesn't have that kind of iconic, kind of toy, childlike innocence as the first film necessarily. It kind of has this horror drum beat, almost rock type of tone. It's and it kind of seems more generic in that sense than the other ones, but it's still on its own not bad either. I just would have preferred something a bit more in line with the music from the first two movies. Maybe a jump evolution of that. Maybe they could have done similar sounding music to the first two movies, but even added that kind of rock element to it. They wanted to. That could have been interesting, but they didn't go with that. Even though I do like most of the story with the film and everything like that, I do like the new setting, and it does bring a bit of fresh new, basically fresh new coat paint. I must admit that's basically all it is, because it's still this is where you could kind of see the franchise kind of starting to become stale and kind of tired, because it's still kind of doing the same stuff, Chucky going after a kid to basically transfer his soul into said kid. Andy Barclay still involved trying to stop Chucky once and for all. It's just, so yeah, it is kind of a bit tired at this point. Like, almost as if they knew they had to do something new and different. Which they do with the next one, which we'll get into that. Also, another negative I have is, just like with the other Child's Play films, is that the kills aren't that really interesting at all. In fact, most of them are kind of like, all like either cutaways, or you just see kind of weak ass kills. Although there's one kill that's kind of funny. It's meant to play for laughs, and that's when like this one like colonel or whoever he is comes in searching around because he thought he heard something, and he's kind of this older gentleman, and Chucky pops out and ends up scaring the guy to the point where he has a heart attack and actually dies to said heart attack, and Chucky's like, oh, you gotta be f***ing kidding me. You know, it's like, that's kind of funny, you know, that's kind of funny. That's actually not a bad kill in terms of like comedic purposes. But other than that, the kills are mostly off-screen and not very memorable. Honestly, there's barely a memorable kill outside of Chucky's death in this movie. So not only does he get half of his face scraped off by amusement park ride, but also gets, at the end of the movie, gets shot multiple times, and then after he got shot, thrown down into like a spinning turbine, chopping him into pieces, which you'll see come into play with the next film. And so outside of that, which I'll put that in my positives, by the way, is Chucky's death. Outside of that, not much memorable kills at all in this movie. So that's it. I'm going to give Child's Play 3 3.5 out of 5 stars. Now, even though I think there's some elements in this that's better than Child's Play 2, I still say the first two films are much more watchable than this one. Because this is one of the films I must admit I watched the least in this franchise. Out of the ones I rewatched the least amount. So, just never really seemed to have an interest going back and revisiting this, but it's still a fun movie just for like a one-time watch or anything like that. And if you want to see this series continue, but I don't think it's nearly as bad as a lot of people have been building this film up to be. I mean, it's not like Halloween Resurrection bad, it's not Freddy's Dead the Final Nightmare bad, it's not anywhere near that. It's not even like as bad as a film which we'll get to later on in this series, so. But I will say this was a kind of a bit of a downgrade from the first two movies, but there were some things I felt like this film improved upon. Kind of a mixed thing for me, which is why I gave it the rating I did, because it's kind of mixed in that regard. So that's it for this review. Do you guys honestly agree with my opinion? Are you someone who loves Child's Play 3 and actually would give it a higher rating than I would? Or are you someone who agrees with me? It's kind of a mixed bag. There's some good things about it, even some things that it does better than Child's Play 2, but it's still not as good as the first two movies. Or are you someone who completely hates this movie? Tell me in the comments down below which is your guys' opinion on this film, and tell me why exactly. And knowing that too, just don't be dicks about it with each other in the comments. Again, these are just movies, these are just our opinion. So that's it with the original kind of films under the Child's Play branding. Now we're going to get on to the later films, which do get different, actually, to say the least. Some of them I might probably need help with, so some of them me and Josh are probably going to review. So that's it for this review. Thank you guys for watching, and don't f with the Chuck!